say, what is subcontinent to Sri Lanka? Okay, yes, Buddha is from northern India. Our connections, one is with South India.
Country like India, which is fifth largest, is going to go towards the fourth and third. It is unrealistic for us to even talk in terms of economic development without taking on a bigger geopolitical role and securing our neighborhood.
What are the forces that will dominate? It won't be all this. It will be economics. It will be trade. It will be investment. It's going to be connectivity. And the biggest potential is also going to be in the Bay of Bengal.
We will start with the current situation and then move on to the geopolitics of the subcontinent as we see it. The truth is, when we talk about the new forces that are shaping subcontinental geopolitics, the old forces don't actually go away. And today what we are seeing is a resurgence and certainly a troubling reminder that terrorism is not something that has been defeated despite years of what was called a global war on terrorism. We're seeing some of the same reactions coming both from countries that support terrorism as well as those that support those countries. And the truth is, as we said yesterday, for those of you who are here, we're in the middle of a century, the quarter mark of the century that has already seen in the last 5 years, COVID, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the Israel-Gaza conflict, the advent of a new prime minister in the US who's threatening to upend all the rules. But beyond that, if you look at the larger trajectory of what we have seen impacting the subcontinent, over the past decade has been the rise of Chinese aggression on one side, the retrenchment of the United States from a lot of positions it used to take, and perhaps an increasing protectionism, a regionalization of trade. We are in a region that doesn't do much trade with each other. We're still at about 5%, I think. Given all of that, then we look at what's been happening in the region itself. And I'm just talking about since 2020. We saw a coup in Myanmar. We saw the Taliban, a terror group that still denies half its population, all girls, education, coming to power and being more or less accepted and engaged with, including by us in New Delhi. We've seen different kinds of regime change. One in Pakistan that brought people onto the streets. One in Bangladesh that was forced by people on the streets. One in Sri Lanka that saw, including you, Your Excellency, facing some of those protests. And we have seen all around a sense that the world is just not a very safe place, and our region particularly is a bit of a hot spot, if we can start with that. So I wanted to start by asking you, as we stand here today, and I do want to come to Pakistan very much, where you think the biggest changes in the region have come from?
The biggest changes are taking place globally. How we fit ourselves into that is the issue. Firstly, I see in the world they are celebrating 80 years after the war. Who won the war? Why are they celebrating in Europe? Americans gave the money, the blood was given by the Russians, Chinese, this subcontinent, and the Africans. But it broke that European order, though the colonial order, though Europe still benefited. Now there's a big shift coming in. So what I want to say is, why are we calling ourselves subcontinent? Why are we calling ourselves region? We call ourselves South Asia. I was a minister at that time. Because by that time, everyone else had taken a position in ASEAN or some other thing. So I used to say we are the leftovers. What do we call ourselves? And President Rahman from Bangladesh said we call ourselves South Asia. So we are really the leftovers. But if some went to ASEAN, others were with the hub and spoke system of USA. So my idea is whether we should not think aloud and think separately. I have some notes on it.
Because the sense has always been that this is brought in fact, as a geopolitical influence from the United States. And that it was, in fact, a US State Department memo in the 1950s that first referred to South Asia as a term. Since then, of course, as you point out, it has now become current.
Yeah. No, we took the South Asia term because we had no other term. We knew it was in the US State Department, but look, we were the leftovers.
Well, I mean,
okay, we were
the
in the subcontinent. No, we were all together separately. So when you got together, what do you call ourselves? You can't call the Indian subcontinent. Pakistan objected, something like that. So we took this name out. But I'm not talking of the past. I'm looking at the future.
Oh.
No, we are seeing a great shift. We had a tripolar world at the end of the World War II. It became bipolar, US and Soviet Union. Then it became unipolar, Soviet Union. It's becoming bipolar again. Now, can it become tripolar by 2050? That's one of the issues. Then it won't be Europe. If it's tripolar, bipolar is going to be America and China. If it's tripolar, America, China and India. So these I think the issue and what's there for the region. So what I had thought was of talking of the forces that are going to shape our region's geopolitics during this time of uncertainty. Now, if you look at the PricewaterhouseCoopers record, then the third largest economy, the three largest economies will by 2050 is going to be China, India, USA. And India's GDP will go tenfold into 30 trillion. Of course, Mr. Advani says it will be about 1 trillion every 18 months. But according to Goldman Sachs, where Jim O'Neill made the BRICS, it will be China first at 41 trillion, US second at 37 trillion, and India at 22 trillion. So you all are basically, India is moving between 25 trillion and 30 trillion. It's not only that. It's not a question of the India is second or third. You look at the world, the next one is going to be Indonesia. And that is range about 6 to 7 trillion. So you can see the big gap. 3 people very close and then a big gap. But more than that, India will also be the most populous country, 1.6 billion in a world of 9.8 billion. But more than that, the development in our region, among the top 30 countries according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, there will be Japan and South Korea also in East Asia. But remember, an area which consists from Iran to Vietnam, I tell you why I took that. It will have Iran, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia and Vietnam, which will have a collective population of 2.7 billion out of that 9.8 billion. And a combined GDP which will be somewhere close to 40 trillion, if not 35. So this is going to be, then we are not counted in Singapore and Brunei, which will have one of the highest per capita incomes. And you will have 3 nuclear powers.
Right.
So you are going to be, this is going to be the most powerful region in the world. And we can do so if we get out of our traditional mindset, which is what I told you, how we came about to use the word South Asia. Then what exactly is an Indian subcontinent? It's not a geopolitical term, it's artificial, made during the British Empire. This is only a physical landmass which has jutted out onto the Indian Ocean and divided into 2. But it's also been an extraordinary geopolitical platform. From this landmass came for 2 million or 2 millennia you have seen, starting from the Indus Ganges civilization, there has emanated religions, philosophies, sciences, mathematics, including the north, astronomies, medicines, languages, culture, literature, which has shaped this whole Asian continent from Vietnam all the way up to Iran. So you are, if you are calling a British Commonwealth, this is a much larger Commonwealth. So, I mean, if you read, we all have all read both Amartya Sen and William Dalrymple, you see what that world is. So, are you laying a claim to that? Are all of us going to lay a claim to that or not? What is, as they say, what is subcontinent to Sri Lanka? Okay, yes, Buddha is from northern India. Our connections, one is with South India. These ministers are nice, some of us believe in Rahu Kale, others like me don't. We have Taipongals and the whole system and Appam and all. Beyond that, what is no? But then I go up all the way to Vietnam because Theravada Buddhism we have sent up to Vietnam. So I find a commonality. But then you have the Ramayana going there. You have Bali, Hinduism. So if we keep ourselves to this, we are in here. But if we look further, I can go out there. We can even something common even in Iran. So it's a vision of a much larger land area, larger population, and larger economics. So into this, we'll have adjacent to us East Asia, Central Asia, Turkey, and the Arab world up to Egypt. So you're in a position of getting a landmass which will be the most important. At one time, everyone thought Europe was there. The empires were there and the European Union was there.
Right.
But if you are having this, why don't you look at it? And you have to remember economically, it's traders in our areas led by these large trading guilds of South India, the 500 merchants and others, they dominated it, not Pallavas or Anuradhapura or Pandyan. Those kings just moved around. But these are guys who had everything up to Vietnam. How did Kaundia? Kaundia was going to China and someone caught hold of him and he had a kingdom there, like you talk of Prince Vijay here. So it looks as everything has originated from Odisha. But with all this, and even today you are talking of the IMF and all. But look, how much of unofficial money moves between us and Chennai? Hawala systems are there, the hundi is there. Anyway, I can get money sent anywhere from that. I need not get permission from a central bank or anywhere. That's part of what we are left behind. So you have IMF. What they don't realize when we are doing our plans and our changes on the fiscal and monetary side is that we have hawalas and hundis and now we have Dubai also to make it more complicated. So now we are seeing a world in which Trump has disrupted the WTO, which he has opposed. So he has challenged a global order made by the US. It's something like a cat eating the kitten. Anyway, we have to live with it. You can't put it back. And I think we all look towards US as the engine, but now it's shaken. So regionalism is going to be more and more important. And what is this culture that we can have? That's what I'm looking at. Because we are having an area, we are having an area which will overlap RCEP, ASEAN, the Progressive Agreement on Trans-Pacific Partnership, BRI. So that's, now I know at the moment there are conflicts between all and Pakistan, but if you go up to Iran, you control the whole Makran Coast. Makran Coast is the most important one because in that India has the north-south corridor through Chaba, which goes to Russia and Europe. And then China and Pakistan has Gouda, which goes up through all with the Friendship Highway. then you are thinking of the India, Middle East, Europe. So if you look at the development that will take place in Indonesia, India, Bangladesh, all those, Iran, Pakistan, anyone, you can't send all those containers through the Suez Canal.
Sure. Can I interject here?
Yeah.
Because you've built this idea and you've shown that South Asian culture, in a sense, like water, will find a way of flowing through. Do you think it's a reality, though, today? I mean, you spoke about the India-Pakistan problem as if it was one problem. Do you think it's one part of the horizon which we can move on from? You're the veteran of the whole South Asia, SAARC movement.
In 79, I went first time to China. Looking at that, I didn't think it's going to be the global power today. You know where they got the idea for Shenzhen, this social free market economy within a socialist, from Sri Lanka's free trade zone, which they have started. I have come to India. How do I think it's going to be? It will be a 30 trillion economy. Do you want to take it or not? Then someone must take leadership and take it there. Are you willing to take leadership and take it there? That's even if you don't, it will just be this thing. Who thought China is going to do BRI? Somewhere Z thought I will put BRI and is getting BRI done. Like what Prime Minister Modi has done now. So someone has to take that baton up. But I am giving you the possibilities, because I am not a person who wants to be out there. Then you have the Colombo Conclave. You have IRA, and we proposed a central secretariat for the Indian Ocean when the India Foundation we met in Oman. So these are going to be the areas. So what are the forces that will dominate? It won't be all this. It will be economics. It will be trade. It will be investment. It's going to be connectivity. It's going to be logistics. It's going to be diversification. It's energy. And the biggest potential is also going to be in the Bay of Bengal. India, Bangladesh, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, all within this. Then you come back to the original place. I mean, the British came to take the trade out of Bengal, destroy the trade there, and took over Calcutta, and they destroyed. I mean, they got control of the Bay of Bengal, and they destroyed it. So now it is coming back. And what are the developments? You must remember now, in the eastern side of the Bay of Bengal, big developments are taking place. In the west of China, Western China development, Chongqing is coming up, Chengdu is coming up. And there is the Singapore-Chongqing economic corridor. There is the other connectivity they send through Vietnam. The Belt Railway is coming, but they are building up and connecting. One port they are building, other they will start building, other one they are building Rangoon straight up to Kunming and Kunming. So you get that coming down into the eastern side of Bay of Bengal.
Sure. If I could at that point bring in Ambassador Tirumurti, President Wickremesinghe has really drawn a broad canvas. He's spoken about the power of imagination, what we can be if South Asia is able to take steps towards trade, connectivity, and all of these issues. Give us the overpowering reality, though.
Yeah.
Do you think this is possible?
No, actually, I'm absolutely delighted with what His Excellency has mentioned. Because if you recall yesterday, I was looking at precisely this point that India should take a geopolitical role which goes beyond the subcontinent. And it's extremely important that we do that. The sooner we do that, the more important it will be. But that said, I'd just like to have I'd like to divide my comments into two parts. One is that, as you say, the reality of the subcontinent. Now, when you look at the subcontinent, the new forces which are shaping the subcontinent, let us look at that. Earlier we used to talk about a democracy deficit in the subcontinent. We used to have countries which had military rule and others, and which had also so-called elected dictatorships. But now in the last 15 years, actually democracy has taken root in a much firmer way than before. it may sound a bit ironic when you see Bangladesh and Myanmar, but actually if you look at it very closely, you have, for example, Maldives. After 30 years or so of President Gayoom, you had the first multi-party election sometime in October 2008. After that, they have had elections and I think 5 different presidents, showing the maturity of the, the electorate. Now, then you have Sri Lanka, which is which has been a thriving democracy, a robust democracy.
Yeah, Bhutan as well.
Yeah, but they had, the LTTE, which constrained them. But in 2009 May, NTT was finished. Now they were free. They had this Aragalaya, which was a very unfortunate episode. But you have His Excellency, who actually stabilized the economy and brought democracy back, and it is all vibrant. Then you had Bangladesh, and even Bangladesh, after all the military rule and others, in 2008 they had elections. It was one of the cleanest elections. In fact, the electoral roll was supervised by the UN at that time. And Sheikh Hasina came to power. So, and even now, when you have throwing of the democratically elected government, and, but actually what were the youth asking? The youth, basically, they felt that she was backsliding on democracy. That's the reason they actually went and threw her out. That is how I look at it. So it was not that they wanted out. They wanted her out because they said, you are backsliding on democracy. And Myanmar is another case. In 2010, you had, after 20 years of military rule, you had elections. Aung San Suu Kyi was freed after 15 years. So 2010, you had 3 elections after that. It's very unfortunate they have gone back. But now they are realizing the difficulty they are having, even to control it. They are not Senior General Tan Shwe. He is a very different. And even at that time, if you recall, 2008, General Musharraf, President Musharraf at that time went into exile, and they had a civilian government. No, why I'm saying is that now democracy is coming in a much firmer way, and I think that is one big change. The second change is the power of youth. If you look at Bangladesh, it was the youth which took on the entire mantle. It may have been hijacked later, but it was youth which came out. You look at Maldives, it is the youth which is coming up. You look at some of the developments in Sri Lanka, it is clearly the youth. And even in Myanmar, the younger leaders are driving it now. The NLD leaders of the old bloc, they are not being listened to. And it's happening all over our subcontinent. The youth power is coming up. And finally, I think this is something which ties in with what you was mentioning. If you look at geopolitical changes, all our countries want to develop economically, like he has mentioned, trade, investment, energy, and a whole lot of things. And we are doing pretty well. There have been ups and downs, and particularly, but he has been able to stabilize the economy in Sri Lanka. Now, if you look at the economic side and where we want to proceed, geopolitical changes will essentially mean right now the reset between the United States and China. Now, if that reset is going to have spheres of influence, then you're going to contend with an area which will potentially be under a Chinese type of sphere of influence. So we'll have to look at how will that impact our subcontinent and this region. The second is that it is natural for countries in the subcontinent to also have China and the US to have, I don't know what you call it, as a competition between China, US, India, and try to choose from them and get the space, the so-called strategic space. It's natural. We are concerned that it should not become a security problem for us. It is not about economics. And what should India do? And we are already doing it. If you recall, after 2008, 2000, that era, our development partnership with our neighboring countries went exponentially. We gave, at that time, the biggest line of credit to Bangladesh of $1 billion in 2010. We gave 1.2 to 1.5 billion at that time to Sri Lanka. And it happened all over. Look at what we did with Afghanistan at that time. So I have a feeling that India opened up. We realized that it is important to integrate ourselves with the other economies with us. And it has been continued. And I have a feeling that if our economy is able to open up to the economies of our neighbors, then you become a net provider of prosperity to the region. And moment India becomes a net provider of prosperity to the region, you automatically can keep out China and the United States. So this is the type of, my initial statement.
Understood. Since Ambassador Tirumurti brought up the subject of security, I have to address what is today the elephant in the room. Normally when we say elephant in the room, we mean China. But today, our entire focus is on dealing with the problem with Pakistan. In a sense, it is also the biggest problem, hurdle to South Asian unity, if you like. India's problems with Pakistan and particularly with cross-border terrorism. How would you say, as kind of a sort of a patriarch of the region now, because you have seen so many governments in the entire region, while you have been Prime Minister, while you have been President, what do you think really India should do?
India, Pakistan, this is a big issue. But remember, this is not the biggest issue. If you don't find employment, and you have what happened in Bangladesh happening elsewhere, it can blow up in Pakistan anytime now. We are all going to be in a thing. What happened there, well, we have always condemned terrorism like what in Kashmir, but our one being Sri Lanka and others, we want to see this coming to a close because firstly, it's a question for the first time we are seeing a lot of AI, drones, others being used. It's not the normal clash that we have been. And something which I didn't think of yesterday, but yesterday night I was speaking to someone of my friends in US, and he told me something that's very alarming. American and other investors are wondering whether you should invest in India, which is prone to bombing by Pakistan. Now, those are things we don't think, none of us thought yesterday. But coming back, your attitude is, this is basically a dream. Can it be feasible? Mine is, how do we do it? Because are we going to grab back what we lost 2 centuries ago? I mean, when Europe talks of Chinese cheap goods coming in, I mean, they forget that you had cheap textiles here and they wiped it out to send their textiles under the Industrial Revolution. And when China had a balance of payments in favor of them, they sent opium. So, I mean, this is a game that's going on. If we don't lift ourselves up, how are you going to manage? China has lifted a part of its middle class up, it still has to go. That's the same thing India has, all our region. So one of the other ones that I have proposed, therefore, is you looking at Bay of Bengal, if Chinese are doing that part, why don't we do this part? Well, I had the 2 ministers here. What's your fastest growing states? Where are they? Your Tamil Nadu, you have on this side, your Kerala on that side, you've got a port now. Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Telangana has no port. So, okay, we combine, that's what Prime Minister Modi and I talk. We have a land bridge. Okay, you have Trincomalee, which is what we are thinking of developing. Sure. And you have Colombo, you can even put a new port in that area. Immediately, just see how these 3 states will grow.
I agree, Your Excellency, but I do have to ask that you put economic and development above security. But surely Sri Lanka could not do a lot of what it has been able to do until it stamped out terrorism in its own state and finished the LTT.
Look, remember, we survived because despite terrorism, we opened up with this war going on, we opened up Mahaveli scheme. We got new power. We opened up 5 zones, with Chandrika was the 6th zone. So all of that, our whole economy was transformed during war. This will go on. Terrorism will be there. We have to prevent terrorism from coming into our country. We finished the LTT, who thought some Islamic terrorism were going to come and blow up the churches. That's a phenomena we have to live with. But what we want to see is that between India and Pakistan, there is a sort of a stable relationship. But even now the 2 national security advisors are exchanging views midway, which is good. And also that terrorism in Kashmir should end. But what is the guarantee you won't have terrorism in some other part? That is what we thought. So while we tackle that, we must take this. So do you want that growth to come to Tamil Nadu? Do you want that growth to come to Telangana? Do you want that growth to come in? I am saying you are looking at a problem immediately in Kashmir. I am looking at, wait, that's okay for you. I am looking at the issue in the global order is changing. Do you want to come there and be the number 3 or forget and still be where you are? You had this problem with Kashmir when you were a poor state. You had this problem. You have to sort it out. But despite that, you have now come to this position that you can be the 3rd largest economy in the world. So from a large economic power, if you have this area and you build up, are you getting closer to being a tripolar world? Or do you want this? So I am saying you have this, you had wars with Pakistan. In my life I have seen all those, but that should not stop you from developing. That's all I have said.
I take your point. Ambassador Tirumurti, as somebody in the Ministry of External Affairs, you have dealt with the neighborhoods position, and what President Wickremesinghe is saying is actually something we hear from many of our neighbors, that India's problems with Pakistan should not stop the development of the region, should not stop. Is it possible to put these problems, I mean, I know right now it seems like the worst time to even ask the question because we look like we're at the brink of a full-fledged conflict. But is it possible to put those issues on the side, or will India just simply have to do as it has done for the last decade, put Pakistan to the side, deal with its other neighbors?
See, of course, I'm not in the ministry anymore, so I can afford to say a few things of what I think about this.
We hope you do.
It is just that, yesterday I've spoken extensively on this topic, so I'll just restrict it to a few points. See, I have always maintained, and I mentioned it yesterday as well, that security and geopolitics vis-a-vis economic growth and development, they are actually two sides of the same coin. You cannot talk one without the other. Especially a country like India, which is 5th largest, is going to go towards the 4th and 3rd. It is unrealistic for us to even talk in terms of economic development without taking on a bigger geopolitical role and securing our neighborhood and being a net security provided for not just the neighborhood, but for a larger region and the region which he sketched out. We have to be the net security provider. So therefore, conflict with Pakistan or cross-border terror with Pakistan, these are all things which we need to factor into our economic growth. That is because that is the only way that you can grow bigger. If we think that by soft pedaling that we can grow bigger, it may not have. So therefore, it is integral to it. So let us factor in this, that there would be cross-border terror. We need to meet it resolutely. We have to establish deterrence, and that is a stepping stone for greater growth. So that's the way I look at it.
All right. So the global factors perhaps don't come into what the subcontinent or the region or South Asia is actually has to sort out on its own. I'm going to stop here and take some questions from the audience.
No, but can I give something? Just to tell you. Firstly, by growing, you are not throwing security aside. If this comes through, there will be others who will tell Pakistan also settle this.
Sure, the stakeholders are
built.
No,
yeah, because we want basically we want peace, stability. Secondly, there is an opening that is coming because of President Trump, but also President Xi has stood up to him, and that's creating this. This won't be there forever. If you are going to wait to finish Pakistan issue off before you come there, you would miss it. Then what is the option? Okay, we'll look more at China, that's all. For economic reasons, not security. Security, we have always said India's security is good to us, and as I've told, we have so many arrangements. But okay, economically, we can't be trading with US, we are doing apparel. So now it's gone. So we have to look elsewhere. Okay, we have this, or otherwise, we go to China. That's all. Don't complain.
I mean, we can get into an entire different debate over whether China has proven to be quite the better option, especially when it comes to loans and economic issues. Mr. Narayanan, the former National Security Advisor, has had his hand up.
At the risk of sounding critical of what the discussions were just now, I think you should kindly allow the former president of Sri Lanka, to explain his idea. I think it is the single most important idea that I've heard in the last decade. He has talked in terms of a new coordinated effort in this part of the world, creating a system different from where we are not dependent on the West or the East, etc. Can you, sir, give us in about 5 minutes, what is your vision? Without, I mean, you've been answering questions about whether security comes before kind of, but clearly you have a vision, and I think you give us the germ of that idea. There are people who can work on it, but I think, in my opinion, I've been around for a long time, in recent times, this is one of the finest ideas that has sprouted from this part of the world.
No, it's in, as I said, changing global order. Don't have a unipolar world, whoever it is. A bipolar world is better, tripolar world is even better. And there's a big gap coming in the Indian whole civilization, the whole world is the Indian Ocean. You look at history and tell me something else. It's us, the three largest. You have Hindus, Islam, Buddhism, you have Sanskrit, you have Arabic, you have Pali. Hasn't those influenced the world? And this is, what is China? China was big, but it was the Middle Kingdom. The Middle Kingdom has now covered with East Asia, all of that. Europe, the Western world has US, which is true. They are the ones who took them out of World War II. Then what do we do with our areas? So if you don't fill that gap up, then China will be the one, because US is saying, we are not coming whether you like it or not. You are doing it, but what I am saying is be there. We are not saying to scrap anything, but it's a tripolar world in which we are now claiming and getting in, and for that, we'd like to see India come up and take the lead. That's all I am saying. But it's up, you're giving back what should be there.
Mr. Ram had a question as well.
Yes, I think I second what he said. The vision of the former president of Sri Lanka is full of hope. I think it has many attractive elements. And as long as I've known Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, he's had at least this germ of this vision which has developed over this whole period. I'm talking about decades here. So I think it's really a progressive idea, and we should discuss it. Just quickly on the democratic deficit, there are two huge democratic deficits. One, of course, Pakistan, with the present its export of terrorism, the ascendancy of the army, which has been strengthened by what's happened. But let's not forget there's a huge democratic deficit in India with the present government. Many of us are facing it, journalists and others. In Pakistan, the election was stolen from Imran Khan's party. Everybody knows it. But in India, states are being attacked, democratic rights are being attacked, minorities are being targeted, the media are being intimidated. Some of us, as was mentioned yesterday, do self-censorship in anticipation of this. So let's not celebrate or over-celebrate the rise of democracy in our region. Of course, it's true what Mr. Tirumurti said. But
sure. The idea that democracy is more than just the elections.
We have a serious problem with authoritarianism in our region. Sri Lanka is in a different space right now. That's different. Maybe it was mentioned Bhutan, but the two biggest, most populous countries, Bangladesh too, in a very dubious situation right now. Right. So democracy is in crisis in in this region. That's the
I
point
think
I
we
wanted
were possibly looking for the silver lining, but yes, that's an important point in the editor, Mr. Suresh Nambar.
Yeah, taking off what President Wickremesinghe said, will economic independence in South Asia deter terrorism or cross-border terrorism? If Pakistan is more interdependent within the regional economy, will that be a sufficient deterrence to terrorism or cross-border attacks?
You are only looking at one aspect of terrorism, cross-border attacks. Even the most prosperous countries have attacks, not cross-border. America got it from when the Al-Qaeda came, they took a plane and this thing did in. So terrorism is something different. Even if you sort out all the issues with Pakistan on this, terrorism may not cease in our area. We have to live and prevent terrorism. That's why the security cooperation is important. Good example is Sri Lanka. You know, India told us the bomb will come. But we had lapses in our system. Sure. So we allowed it. So that's going to happen. It's completely the thing. In this instance, terrorism cross-border has caused this conflict between India and Pakistan. But terrorism per se is a different issue. So I think what we have to focus is on the India-Pakistan issue, which was a conventional military earlier, as Mr. Narayan knows. Now it's this. So I think that's, for me, it's a different issue. Not only terrorism, but at the moment, it's been reflected in a cross-border terrorism.
Okay. So someone in the audience had hands up. I'll take one from here and one from here. And maybe we'll take both the questions and then get
Yeah, good morning. My name is Ashutosh. I have two quick questions. One is to former president. You have seen the economic crisis in Sri Lanka and possibly help Sri Lanka to come out of it. What is your opinion or a remark on, in last, say, 15, 20 years, a lot of this freebie culture in the form of freebies, socialism and all that stuff is happening.
Can I restrict you to one question? Because there's just one more and it says time's up over here. Thanks. We can take it after the session. Go ahead.
My question is for Ambassador Tirumurti, who was there in the previous, who would have been hearing the previous panelists also. So there's rise of a new form of democracy in India of one nation, one religion, one nation, one language, and one nation, one leader. What is this new democracy? I want your opinion on it, because I completely agree with you, the socio-political and the economic cannot be divorced from each other. So your wisdom on that, I seek.
All right. Your Excellency, you want to answer the question about...
I thought also you, huh? No, these are very interesting.
No, he had a question on the economy. On
Sorry, what was he saying here?
Yeah, on bringing Sri Lanka out of the economic...
Well, what I have done is stabilize it.
You don't need the mic.
You don't need the mic.
What I have done is to stabilize it. Now it's a question of having growth to repay the loans. Of course, that they've now passed on to another government. That's a part of democracy.
No, I was not quite sure what he wanted, because what Mr. Enram said was a comment and not a question. So I leave it at that.
The question at the back, though, I think was a specific question about the idea that that democracy is about pluralism, about different points of view, and then there is this alternate view of democracy.
Yeah,
you know, we've had, for example, officials here say what Lee Kuan Yew said, which is perhaps we have too much democracy.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, when India is trying to redefine itself, how we redefine ourselves is something which is for us. So this is something which we can endlessly debate on how we should redefine ourselves as a nation. So I don't think we have time, and the time is also up to define this. But let me just say that, you know, whatever may be the differences we may have on how we are looking at India and how we redefine it, I have zero doubt that democracy is taking firmer roots in the region. And this provides greater resilience to the foreign policy decisions which you will take. And I think that's very important.
And hopefully is a work in progress and not the final answer that has come. We'll have to leave the questions at this point after this is done. In fact, Mr. Narayanan pointed out, which I should have said earlier, we've had President Wickremesinghe on at the Huddle earlier, where he actually gave a keynote address on many of his ideas about South Asia, particularly about regional trade integration, and I'll share that with you. It's also online on the Hindu's website. website. But with that, we've really run out of time. I'd like a round of applause for our wonderful guests today who fielded some of the most contentious questions, perhaps. And thank you for being a great audience.